You're listening to My Inner Teacher with Peter Starius and Crystal Ariel. The answers you seek are within you.
Thank you, Ashley, for being here. I was trying to remember how we met, and do you remember that story?
I know how we met, yes. We were at Telluride, not Bluegrass, Telluride Yoga Festival, and you were at we were at the same restaurant, and you were talking with your family, and I heard you talking about Sun Valley, which is where my family lives. And so I said something like, hey, something about Sun Valley. And then we ended up talking for a while. And then somehow, maybe at the festival, we talked more. And then I feel like I really got to know you when we were in Sedona and went on a hike one day and then kind of sprung from there. So the Sun Valley connection was the spark.
Yeah, it is a spark, isn't it? How coincidence brings people together that are just random connections, and then there's all these coincidences and similarities. And learning about SoulJour, the company that you founded, and the whole mission of SoulJour. Talk to us about that. What is SoulJour, and how did you get the idea, and why did you create it?
So actually at that time of Telluride is really at the beginning of it. The way it started was I was at Bhakti Festival, and I had a hat that I had made for a friend for Burning Man, and it said "Hell yeah" on it. And I wore it. I wandered into Lauren Roche's class, and it was in this geodesic dome, and Lauren loved my hat, and he dragged me on stage to talk about my hat. And it was this really weird day where that day, so I didn't know who Lauren was. I had no idea. Again, another coincidence, I guess. And he had me say, as if it were an Om, what would hell yeah be? We talked afterwards, and I loved his class, and later I read the Radiant Sutras, which he later became a mentor of mine. But this was right at the beginning. And in this day of Bhakti Fest, I had 15 people comment on this hat. And I was like, man, if I had a truckload of these hats, I could have probably made my ticket price. I mean, I had so many people comment on this hat. I thought, oh, okay, weird. So I'm a graphic designer in real life. And at that time, I was going through a divorce, and it was, it was a big thing. I had been with the person I was with from 22 until 40. At this time, I was over 40. And so I had been kind of thinking in my real job, which I've worked at Nike for a long time, and I have a lot of corporate clients, but I started at Nike, and what I was really good at is taking scientists and all this kind of back end jargon and making it front facing for the consumer as a graphic. And so this time of when this spark happened in this class, I had been thinking about how to depict yoga philosophy in a way that's graphic, because my gift is more through my creativity in a different way. I've never been a yoga teacher. I've studied yoga with every teacher possible for, well, at least back in the day, all the OGs, including Peter. So I'd studied yoga for so long, and I thought, God, if there was just a way. And that little spark from Lauren was maybe I could tell a story through yoga in a way that's graphic, and tell my story in a way that's coming out into the world as well. And so, and then in that time, it was a time of really recreating my identity, because I really, I'd been with somebody my whole life, or my whole adult life, and now I was on my own. And so it's sort of this merging of yoga philosophy, my personal story, and my design of coming out into the world. And so I left Bhakti Fest, and I really kind of put my nose to the grind, and just came up with these different ideas of graphics that I could show. And so my early graphics were one, for example, of the Phoenix Rising. And it's a heart that's broken. It's inspired by that Japanese pottery that's that kintsugi, I think it's called, where you break all the pieces and then you put it back together again with the gold, and it's stronger than ever. And so there's this broken heart, jagged heart, and then with these wings. And it was really the story in the Phoenix Rising, but it was really my story as well. And so, that story, and it's a yoga. I mean, it's a, something you hear in yoga a lot too. So everything that I've done with SoulJour, it started out as really graphic tees and storylines. And then it sort of morphed. And as it's gone, over the last 5 or 6 years, it's really been a it kind of goes along with what's going on in my life. And then also what's going on in the world. Because fast forward, so I had these graphic tees that I started getting out a little bit. And then in my house, I had this dirt patch in the backyard, and I covered it with 2,000 square feet of AstroTurf, mostly for my son to play sports. And I was living in the woods in Lake Oswego, and I just started practicing yoga. And I lived in the woods, and it backed up to a 55-acre park. And I thought, man, this is so cool. Like, people need to come do this. So then I reached out to a friend of mine who's a yoga teacher in Portland. And I said, hey, Deanna, like, I got this idea. I think we should do it. My yard's killer. Like, people need to come out here. And with a week's notice, we just put it out there. We were like, we're going to have a 4th of July. She's going to teach the yoga, and I'm going to, host the space, and we'll see what happens. And we had like 45 people show up, and it was kind of like, oh, interesting. Okay. And so from there, I started putting on events, which was never really kind of my thing, but because I'm a connector and I know a lot of people, and, meeting Peter randomly, meeting Lauren, like, that's how my life goes. And so I thought, what happens? So I started to play with events and what happens when you put masters in their craft together. And so that became like a really interesting experiment for me. I love rock and roll, and I love music. And I used to sell t-shirts on Grateful Dead tour and Widespread Panic. And I'd make my own t-shirts. I'd sell in the parking lot. And so my life is all like, I can't believe I'm 50 and I'm still selling t-shirts that I was when I was 20, like, for real. So I started putting on, and I love this, like, I just love music, but I love music that's like, I don't know, like, just deep and rock. Like, I love rock. So I started to put musicians and yoga teachers, and okay, I know this person, I know that person. I took so many yoga classes around Portland, and then meeting bigger people. I've had like Gurmukh came to my yard because her daughter moved to Portland, and so I started putting things together with, like, what happens when you do writing activity. I love to journal. What happens when you journal and in an event and it's outside? And so I started messing with variables. And then I started to find that when people feel good, this is a Tony Robbins, like, 101. I have been to Unleash the Power Within. And so, like, Tony Robbins is like, like the best salesman. So he gets you feeling really good. And then he's like, and I have this cool thing for $10,000, and everyone's like, woo. So that's what I started doing with my events. It was like, when people feel really good and have a good connection and they're meeting new people, I was better able to sell my graphic tees that have meaning. Then there was, like, more meaning and context. So then it became like this whole kind of package experience, basically. So, and then over time, I started to hone that as time went on, like with, as soon as the pandemic hit, then all of a sudden we were like, what's going to happen? And I saw the power of Zoom right away. I got home from India in March. I had to come home early. I was supposed to be skiing in Kashmir. I led a group, and then I've taken groups as well to India. And I came home, and there was no, like, couldn't do anything. And Peter was I know you listened to that first one. I thought, this is so cool. Like, what if I could get people from all over the world to come together in this moment in time? And we did. We got really cool people from all over the world. And so, it's always just been, what's going on in the world? How do I morph? And how do I change really quickly and adapt to, like, the current time? And, and I can't say I really have an answer to any of it, but it's an adventure for sure. And I love adventures. So it's been like a good, it's been up and down, moving. I was living in Portland. Now I live in Bend. All of a sudden I had to start all over again. I don't know anyone in Bend. What am I going to do? I had, 5 events in my yard this last year. I have a room in my house that coincidentally it turns out to be a showroom that after the event, people have food. And I love having food as a component because it brings people together. So it's just been like this complete evolution of, I don't really know what, but it's all pretty fun. And it's all like for the greater good of bringing people together, transformation, I like seeing what happens to people when they tap inside themselves. Like what is that happens to a person, and how do you get there? And to me, music is a touch point, yoga, connecting, meditation, journaling, outside, being in nature, those are all touch points of where to find yourself, I guess.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
And our tagline is remember yourself. So, those are all ways to do that, I guess. And then the graphic tees end up being messaging that's a reminder. And all of my shirts on the inside have our manifesto on it. It's like, here I am, right on time, exactly where I'm meant to be. I'm a seeker, a sage, a warrior, a peacemaker, a systems breaker, a fearless force of nature. A transcender of darkness to light. I radiate grace through purpose and purpose through grace. I'm a daily practitioner of radical kindness, compassion, and full belly laughter. A quietly confident soul in service to source, living a life meant to be lived. So,
Wait.
Stop.
Oh, I just resonate with what you just said. I'm buzzing inside right now, what you said. You hit every one of my touch points in the practice of yoga in one manifesto.
And that's it. And then, so that's on the back of every shirt. So when you put on a shirt, it's a reminder of like, what's the soul? Well, who am I as a soldier? And then it says, and then the end is, so I close my eyes and breathe, unmind the mind, and let truth rise. And so my goal is to get people to know who they are in truth. Like, who am I? What is my essence? What is my purpose? Unmind the Mind is from Lauren Roche's book, The Radiant Sutras. I asked him if I could use that. I love his book, how it's a conversation with Shiva and Shakti. It's like we're in it together. And if you see any of my soldier social media, like anything, I'm always saying it from a we perspective, because I'm in it too. Like, I'm with you guys. Like, I'm here we are. And versus like telling people what to do. I don't resonate with that kind of voice. So I asked him, I'm like, could I use Unmind the Mind? And then he wrote in this email one day, he says, heck yeah. And he's like, we need more female dynamos in the world. So go out and rock your truth. And I was like, oh, that's really good too. Could I borrow that? So he's like, yeah, sure. So we have a secondary tagline. The main tagline is remember yourself, 2 words, capital S. But the secondary one we have is rock your truth.
Fantastic.
Wait a minute. Are you the Ashley that was helping us with the logo?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
She is the Ashley that helped us with the Inner Teacher podcast logo and Academy logo.
I like to make sure my friends look good. It's really important to me. So Peter said he was working on something. I'm like, let me see what you got going. And it looks really good. I like what you guys did.
Yeah. And we're doing a trade because I'm going to hopefully someday be graced with designing a container for you wherever you're living. Or at least adapt what you're living in. I'm curious about soldier, the word. Like, how did you end up with that word, and especially the way you spell it? Like, what was the morphosis of that?
So, so soldier was actually 2 different words before. Revelate, and I'm just blanking on the last one. And it wasn't quite right. So one day I was in India. I was at the Yoga Fest in Rishikesh, and I was meditating. Something about India. Back in my younger days, I used to, wake up early and I do 3 hours yoga before I'd go to work. Well, now I'm a mom, and so I'm like a vampire. So waking up early is like harder. I'm getting better, but it's been a challenge. So anyway, but when you go to India, there's something about the vibration there that you're like up all the time. It's like, I don't know. I just sleep differently when I'm there because there's this like vibration that's really obvious. So this one night, it was right at the beginning of when I had gotten to India, and I was at the Yoga Fest, and it was like 3 a.m. and I just got up to meditate in the middle of the night. And I was sitting there and it was just, I don't know, just sitting there, and I was thinking about my journey to India. and how many times I'd been there. And I've taken a lot of people to India, hundreds of people. I started doing that in 2007. I first went to India in 2004. So this is probably, let's see, I started 2018. So this is like 2017 or 2018. And I had a design that said on the cross the front, SoulJour, SOULDIER. And I had my logo because I was thinking, because a soldier is like somebody who's been through a hard time, who's like a badass, who's gotten through their challenge and is sharing their light with the world. It's kind of like an archetype. So I had this idea and I had this graphic. And then I thought, in the middle of the night, I was thinking about my journey and I was like, oh, SoulJour, interesting. So I sketched it in my journal. I have it somewhere. I sketched it in my journal that night. And then the next day I was in, the classes and whatnot. And I have some friends that were there and like other yoga teachers and studio owners and stuff. And I was like, God, I have this idea. It came in the middle of the night. Like, what do you think about this? And everyone was like, oh yeah, like 1,000,000%. And I thought, yeah, right? Like, that's what I thought too. So it just like, I don't know, it popped in my mind, I guess. So, yeah, it just, to me, it sums up like so much. And a lot of people think it's SoulJour, which fine, could be. It doesn't matter. If you want to say Soul Day in French, that's fine too. But I resonate with SoulJour because, life isn't easy and you got to be on the mission. It's like being on a mission of like finding your purpose, basically. So, and it just resonates, I think, and especially like the current times and what's going on. I just think it's like the perfect name on so many different levels. One time at Bhakti Fest, a gal came into my booth and she was like, what? This needs to be in the dictionary. This word is the best word in the lexicon. Da, 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 da. And I was like, yeah, I think it's pretty good too. So
I agree. Where do you think, this is the whole point, in a way, our mission with this podcast, my inner teacher, where does that voice drop in or emanate? Are you curious about where that voice comes from? Is that?
I mean, every day I'm just, where is this voice? And I'm always, for me, the way that my voice comes, it's, some people hear voices, some people see things. Like I meditate every day and I connect to myself and to God on a daily basis. It's like, really important. And even the days I don't have a formal sitting, I'll be in the sauna, I'll be, whenever I'm able to get out and just have a connection. And what I've noticed is a lot of times I'll ask questions when I'm in my meditation, but the answer doesn't come in the meditation. It comes like, I ask for signs a lot, and to me, things will come in a flash, like that flash in the night of the name of SoulJour. Or sometimes I'll be, just like in your kitchen, you're reaching for a glass and all of a sudden like, wow, oh, like some vision comes in my mind. And, it's a practice I live my life in the flow on purpose and I do it intentionally. I started doing it, after I got divorced because I was married to a super planner. And it turns out I'm not a planner at all. So the way I live my life is with almost no plans. Granted, 1:00, I knew I had this thing, but you know what I mean? But in general, even going on vacation, I don't make lodging. I tell my son, the only thing that I know that we are doing is not having any plans. Because I find that you meet people and you have experiences that you would never have if you had it so regimented. And I think this started maybe in India or something. I traveled there by myself for 3 months the first time I went there with no phone. I had a lonely planet, and there's no such thing as a phone. And like the STD booth that you would go call home or you go check in on the internet cafe. And so in traveling alone is really something that I just think is so critical and so educational, because you have to use your intuition. And if you don't, you just are constantly tested of your intuition. And it takes practice. Because you'll have like in India, it's so weird because you would never have this in the United States, but like people start walking with you all the time. And you'll have a dude that's like some random guy starts walking. And at first you're kind of, because you're American, you're like, what the freak is this guy? Like, who is this? You know, but then after he'll say like, hey, do you want to go see where my family makes this art of, you know, my generations or something? And you're like, what? Okay. You know, is this guy okay? Is it not? And you, when you're by yourself, you really have to use your intuition like quickly. And so I've gotten burned a couple times, but in general, when I say yes, if I say, you know what, this feels okay. I've had like 8-hour, 10-hour experiences the whole day changed. And then that person became my friend. And then, you know, so an experience came out of it because I said yes. And so I started, I don't know, I live my life like that, where I really like to see what comes about and then, you know, make decisions on the fly. And I ask a lot, I ask God a lot, like, you know, just like making right decisions so that I'm not getting burned. And I think you learn along the way. You get burned enough times and you learn things and you kind of put that in the back of your hopper. And but I don't know, the teacher sometimes also like going on a hunch. That's an interesting one. Like I just recently had an experience where I was going to some property. I was looking at some property and I came out of the property and I was like, I don't know. I was like, I wonder what happens when I turn right. I just turned right. I was supposed to go left. I was like, I wonder what happens if I go up the street. And I went up the street and like, it was at the base of these huge rock spires, these really cool rock spires coming out of the forest. And I was like, okay, I went for a while and then I was turning around in the park in some like offshoot, like pull out. And I saw this bench and I'm like, oh, that'd be the perfect place to meditate. And I just like pulled over and I just meditated right there. And I had this killer, like wicked meditation. I thought I never would have done that if I didn't just go off this weird hunch that I had. So again, I don't know where those teachers come from exactly, but I do believe that it's something of, you know, having conversations with God on a regular basis has something to do with it.
Crystal, do you want to comment on that little stanza of curiosity?
Yeah, as a Virgo, I feel that it's my duty to say, this is what I try to do more of in life because I am a planner and I am very structured and I like, you know, I like my to-do lists and things like that. But you're absolutely right. I learned through a teacher, Bobby Klein of mine, that great reward requires great risk. And sometimes you need to be willing to do things that most people are not willing to do. Get out of your comfort zone because like, oh no, what could happen? Who is that person? All the things that you mentioned. But then, I mean, it's essentially taking you on this magical, I mean, sometimes, like you said, you could get burned, but as you connect to your intuition, you have these magical adventures that would have never happened otherwise. And then you have these stories to take home and that makes you more interesting. So yeah, there's definitely a lesson there about following your intuition with solo travel. I love what you shared.
When's your birthday actually? Because I'm a Virgo too.
Oh, and you're not a planner?
So you have hope. Yeah. No, I'm a Sagittarius moon. Maybe that's it. But
Okay.
yeah. So when's your birthday?
The 21st of September.
Okay, I'm August 26th. No, I'm not I mean, yes, I have a to-do list always for my work and things like that, but in general in my life and on the weekends and when I'm just, my life is not planned. And part of what I like to do with SoulJour, one reason I love taking people to India is because it gets them completely out of their comfort zone. And I love getting people out of their comfort zone. It's one of my favorite things. So when people get off the plane, I have the itinerary that I put on the internet, and I just say, just so you know, like, this is just so that you would come on the trip. I was like, this is not actually like most likely what's going to happen. So take this knowledge, this little thing that you got, and pretty much like, let's toss it. And I've had actually an idea for a trip. Probably shouldn't say it out loud, but I've had an idea of like, okay, you're going to come with me on a journey and there's no itinerary and we're just really going to go in the flow, because it really is cool when you do it. I haven't quite had like the guts to do it yet with a big group, but but it is something I've thought about for sure, because it is cool when you see people at the beginning of India, and I usually take them to Varanasi first because it's the fire, and you just like whoosh, like people they don't even know how to cross the street, and so it really like trips you up going there, and it's just so cool by the end. I mean, the stories I have are like a million stories, but like just seeing people how they've changed, like they're like they're not the same. And then, you know, India's not like a fun place. And then what happens is they go home and then it starts to process. And then you realize you've had it's kind of like running a marathon. I used to run marathons. And when you're in the marathon, you're like, this is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. Like, why am I doing this? This sucks. And then when you get done, as soon as you get over the finish line, you're like, oh, when's the next one? You know? So that's kind of how that is. Cold plunging is like the same. Cold plunging is like a short version of that. And I had 2 events in my yard a couple years ago. I had never done cold plunging, and I'm like, I want to do that. So I call my friend who's a Wim Hof teacher and all this stuff, and he does cold plunging and breath. And I was like, I'm going to have an event. Let's just do it. And the transformation I saw in 90 seconds, I was like, what? Like, people legitimately have fear. And then they would get in this ice bath. And then my friend Chris describes it as the transition. There's that moment where you exhale and he has you focus on your exhale. And then you get to that point where, and I would watch, I mean, these people were so nervous, and then they would just like zen out, and then they would do it. They didn't think they could do it. And every person did it. And it was like, dang, that was really awesome, you know? And, I just think that's so cool. Like getting out of your comfort zone is so important.
I have when you were talking about India going unprepared, I have my first trip to India had such a hellish start. And after living in New Zealand for 8 years, my yoga teacher convinced me that I should go home back to the States, because that was my ultimate destination, via India, and go through Europe and back. And so my intention was to go to Pune near Mumbai and study at the Iyengar Institute for 3 months. So that was the plan. But while I was preparing in New Zealand to leave after 8 years and getting rid of all my stuff, I found this book on my shelf that I'd never read called The City of Joy. Have you come across that book?
I have a funny story about that book.
Yes. Yeah, anyway, here's my funny story. So that book inspires me to meet the people, you know, so instead of flying to Mumbai, which is the most direct, you can take a train or a bus from Mumbai to Pune, which is 2 hours, 3 hours, I decided to fly into Delhi, and I'm going to take a train from Delhi to Mumbai, which is like 17 hours. And I'm going to travel third class unreserved so I can meet the people, which is wood slatted benches, and at night they flip these things off the wall so it's 3 tiers high on both sides. I don't know what I was thinking. I get on this train in Delhi, not even a water bottle, you know. I'm just going for the flow. Well, you know what it's like boarding a train or anything in India. It's a mob scene. It's like a trying to get into a concert. So by the time I get on the train, all the seats are taken, and there are people sitting in the aisles, and all the aisles were full, sitting on their suitcases or sitting somewhere. The only place I had was in that little chamber at the ends of the cars where the toilet doors are. There was a place where I could sit on my backpack, and it was right opposite this long drop toilet that smelled like death, you know? So the first 5 hours, I'm telling myself, yeah, this is living the life. And then it gets dark. And they stop at this platform for food, and then the train's going to stay in the platform for like an hour, or not an hour, maybe 30 minutes. I get off, and there's all these vendors, and the food is just covered in flies. You know, like all the pre-cooked food is like covered in flies. And I'm looking at this food, and I'm going, I think I'm going to fast. God, it's so funny. So I get back on the train, and I'm starving, and I'm thirsty, you know, and I'm walking, I'm going to walk. So I'm kind of meandering through, and then I get right opposite this room that has this stacked, and it's this family. And I look at them and they look at me. We don't share any words in common. And they offered me food. It was just like unbelievable. So I took their food and I sat with them. And it was 3 generations of a family with very young kids and a grandmother. And again, there was no communication other than I and food, our eye contact and food and smiling. When it was like I sat there with them for at least an hour, and then because it was dark, it was time to go to sleep, and I didn't have any place to sleep. So they put 2 of the children on one of these flaps and they gave me a place to sleep. So here I am taken care of that first night on this 17-hour journey with a family that had come with those stack of stainless steel pots of food. I had enough food that trip. I mean, they fed me the whole trip all the way to Mumbai. And we never spoke a word together. But that trust, what you're talking about, in a way to just let things unfold, I realized, okay, when I was sitting next to that toilet for 3 hours, I was thinking, what the hell have I done to myself? Why am I here? All those self-talk questions. But by the end of it, by the time I got to Mumbai, I knew I was in the same place. And that 3-month trip turned into a 12-month. I stayed in India for 12 months. And I had this, so many experiences. I could write another book on that, but it's not that time yet for me. And I just felt held. So India is one of those places where if you let go, there's a support system there that I believe will support you on whatever purpose you discover while you're there. And that was true for me. I went thinking I was going to go do yoga, which I did for 12 months, but I was really there to learn meditation with Goenka while he was still alive in Igapuri. And that chapter, that 3 weeks of staying at that ashram at the end of 12 months in India was the purpose that I was there. What I learned at that Vipassana meditation retreat was everything that I hadn't learned yet in yoga. And it has so strongly influenced what I teach in yoga about being with sensation with patience to allow it to naturally change. Sensation is a temporary experience. How long do we wait to see that temporary experience change into something else? And when you're sitting 12 hours a day at Vipassana meditation course, you get to see it change. And it usually doesn't change for the better in the short term. It changes for the worse until you reach that kind of dark night of the soul, that kind of moment where all the conditioning that you have up into that point isn't useful anymore. And you're now moving into this kind of unconditioned space. And there's where insight for me, that was the first experience for me at that Vipassana retreat, where I started to feel that. It was a feeling, it was a visceral feeling in my body. That was the first time it had ever experienced. It was this source of strength, stamina, ease, just powerful and all unscripted, all it just showed up. How does it show up? Mystery, still to this day. Where did that come from? What was that experience about? How did I get there? Those are questions I've asked numerous times. I'm sure you've had similar experiences.
Totally. So many things there. The Vipassana, when I did it, I was like, okay, there's like having a baby, there was going to India was another one. And then there was Vipassana. I'm like, what? In the first 6 days, I was like, I don't get it, man. I wasn't sure. And then the day 7, I had this like major, it was something, all of a sudden everything, that the technique that you use is so subtle. And I had these triggers release, and I had metal in my mouth from all the braces, and I don't know, stuff that was going on in my mouth was like salivating out of my mouth. And I had this extreme heat come off my body that I was like, I'm not bringing anything. So I get there and I had nothing. I'm like, I'm so hot. Like I was getting a turmeric from the kitchen, making a salve to like put, so I could cool down, compresses on my head. And then you can talk to the teacher on, you can arrange for 5 minutes. And on the 7th day, I'm like, what is going on with me right now? Like the whole thing is just unfolding. And I told her I'd been sneaking peanut butter sandwiches the whole time. Because you're supposed to fast, and you're not supposed to sleep, which I was sleeping, or you're not supposed to do yoga. I ended up in my own space. I was doing like restorative. My body was really unraveling. It was real interesting. And then in the breaks, I would be walking as fast as I could around this track. It was like dirt trails and stuff. It was nice, but everyone's leisurely, and I'm super pitta, and I move fast, and I'm like, I cannot walk that slow. So, and then the corner, I'd be doing push-ups, and then I stole these peanut butter sandwiches, or snuck them. And she goes, we've been telling you about like the yamas and niyamas. Like, you're not supposed to steal stuff. Why didn't you just talk to us? I was like, well, I don't know, because everyone is fasting all in the evening. And I do a lot of fasting, but for that amount of time, like I burn, my calories are like burning. All that meditation, you burn, you're burning hot. So she goes, why didn't you just ask us? I'm like, I don't know. I guess I didn't think about it. She goes, okay, what do you need? I said, well, just like some peanut butter and bread would be great. And so then she said, okay, we'll there's a fridge, and it's like a special fridge, and we'll put your stuff over there. So we were just like laughing because I shouldn't be doing that. So I said, okay, fine. So after the last meditation of the night, I go to my fridge thinking, and there's like, I don't know, 80 people doing Vipassana, or 60 people or something. I go to the fridge thinking that I was like, open it up, and it just says Ashley. And on the peanut butter and the bread, I was the only person out of all. I was like, really? I'm the only one that needs food? I'm like, that's so sad. So anyway, it was pretty funny. So
did you eat it?
Oh, yeah. I was so happy to have. I just need something grounding because I was like flying away. It was too much in the ethers. I needed something in my stomach to get me to like go down on planet Earth again. So, yeah, it was funny. But yeah, I don't. The Vipassana, there was something else you said in there about the City of Joy. I also read that book. And I went from Bhutan I had been backpacking for 17 days with my mom and my sister. I had hiked up in Sikkim, and then I met them in Bhutan. And then I thought, because I read City of Joy, I'm going to go to Calcutta and I'm going to save everybody. And the first day, I was staying in this area that's where like all the drug addicts stay, because I was on a budget. So, because I was there for 3 months, and didn't know how to negotiate. I had no idea how to do the lingo. I didn't know anything about India. And when you drop into that city setting like that, it was so overwhelming. Like I was so out of my comfort zone. And this one day I'm walking down the street, and I thought I was going to be Mother Teresa and all this. And I'm like, what? Like I was nowhere near that at all. And I saw this flyer for a tour that was happening with where it was Durga Puja. So it was the biggest festival of the year, which in Calcutta it's the biggest fest in Calcutta too. So I saw this thing about like you go see the Durga pujas as the pujas as a tour, like a tourist guided trip, and they'd show you. And I thought, I'm going to sign up for that because I don't know what I'm doing here. This is crazy. We go to these different neighborhood puja things, and then there's one, we drove out like 45 minutes. I'm like, all right, I don't know where we're going. We get there, and at this time I'm also a vegetarian too. So we get there, and there were these men. We were in this neighborhood village, and there were these men wearing loincloths. And I thought, okay, cool, like whatever, walking around. And there are these goats that are tied up to the fence. And not long after that, it turns out they're like sacrificing goats and drinking the blood from the neck of the goat in their loincloths, like right there. And I was like horrified. I couldn't. What is going on? Like, what is going on right now? So I left that and I was like, get me out of this place. And I never gone on, I was just new to India at this time. Even since, I've never been on a first class ticket. I went straight to the bus station or the train station the next day. And they were like, we don't have anything. I'm like, just give me anything. My friend was down in Kerala. So I was like, it's a 3-day tour, no, 36-hour train ride. And in first class, I'd never been on first class ever since. And that every class of the trains in India are very different. So like in the high class, you get people speaking English. It was actually a great trip. And then I met my friends down in Kerala, and I don't want to tell too long of a story, but the first day of getting there, they say, yeah, go walk on a beach. And these are my friends that do like 3 hours of Iyengar in the morning. And so I was at Ashtangi at that point, and I'm like, what? We're laying over the bed for 20 minutes. I got to go for a walk. I'm going on the beach. So after, their practice was so different, but I learned a lot also from that. And the first day I go on the beach, I go for a walk and I took my shoes off and I'm thinking, gosh, there's a lot of dog poop on this beach. It's everywhere, like every 2 seconds. I'm like, God, this beach is crazy. And then I look ahead and I look forward, and out in the distance, there's a man squatting, and it's not dog poop. And I was like, oh my God. So I immediately put my shoes back on. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This place is nuts. So then I go back to my friends and they're like, hee hee hee. And I'm like, what? This country is insane. I'm like, are you serious? So yeah, you learn, like, I don't know, man, just out of your comfort zone all the freaking time. Yeah.
Wow.
And somehow it's all okay, isn't it?
And it's all okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and one other thing that you said too is like that place is in the land of contrast. So like you'll be at your lowest point, and then somebody comes and says something or does something, and it's these small little gestures that like, what changes? That's the coolest part about India. When I travel there, I make sure that people go, I don't want to stay at 5-star hotels on purpose, because you don't meet the people. And the whole thing about India is like getting below the surface and meeting the people, because they will blow your mind. Like the consciousness there is like, just the boat driver will say something that's like, what? Like so much higher consciousness than, in America, we just are so focused on this like material plane, and they are just like, that's not the focus. So it's really interesting when you open yourself up to, allow things to come in and whatnot, because you just, wow, this place is amazing, but you got to get below that, like dirty, this is weird dog poop everywhere. Like that whole thing, you got to get below that.
I was that train ride that I was describing, and being with that family for 6 hours, overnight, and then waking up in the morning and having breakfast with them and stuff. And I was often reflecting back on that trip, how I had more money in my wallet than these people have probably seen in a year, kind of thing, or ever, to be honest. And yet they were so generous with everything they had. They gave me a blanket, they gave me food, they gave me water. And, they had prepared obviously enough maybe for this kind of coincidence to happen, or they just did with less to give some food. And that kindness seems to run culturally, at least when, like you said, you get below the surface, when you get down into the lower castes of people that they still have joy. That's what that book is about. They still have joy. They understand the power of kindness, joy, empathy, taking care, community. Powerful, powerful experience for my first couple days in India.
How do you think that because I agree, in almost every country actually, except for ours, like where do you think that's been lost in like our culture? How does that go?
I don't know. I think technology plays part of the disconnect currently that I experience when I travel here. And I notice this when I'm traveling, how I never paid attention to it until post-pandemic, that often I'll be walking down a street here, even in San Luis Obispo, And 80 to 90% of the people on a crowded sidewalk on a weekend in shopping district, they're on their phones. You know,
Yeah.
so there's that technology piece that's kind of segregating people into those present on a screen and those present, you know, in life. But I think that it's cyclical. Like I told this story the other day in one of our conversations about skinny jeans and baggy jeans. You know, now baggy jeans are back in, but 3 years ago, my daughter told me to get skinny jeans because they were in then, and now she won't walk with me because I'm wearing my skinny jeans. She's 17, you know, Dad, I can't be seen with you downtown in skinny jeans. So
Hold on to them though, because they'll come back.
exactly. But the thing being that, you know, we're deprived right now of human connection other than through the screen. Even this, you know, for instance, it's good. It's better than nothing, this screen community, this screen interaction. But I think I'm also starting to see people really craving, and maybe it's just post-pandemic stuff, but they're craving human connection, you know, again. And I think it is going to swing. I'm hopeful that it is going to swing, that people are going to go out of their way to be with other like-minded people where they can meet and experience new people. Or, you know, retreats are a perfect example. What you do as a congregator, as a connector, is a beautiful thing, Ashley. And the online things that I've done with you over the years, I've loved. I'm also looking forward to being at one of your in-person things maybe in the future. And yeah.
I
You
agree.
know, I think
And I think workshops are coming back because I went to one recently and it was like so nice to be able to just sit and meet new people. Just like, you know, back in the day, you'd meet who the person on your right, the person on your left. You kind of know them by the end of the day. And then the next day you sit next to new people and then, you know, you're eating together and just doing something that a subject study, you know, in this case it was yoga, but it could be anything. But yeah, it was really nice to do a workshop recently here. I got a new space in Bend, so we'll bring Peter. But I think I've always believed, I always think that being in real life is better. And I think that creating experiences is something that's really rewarding actually when I do it, because I think sometimes I have a vision in my mind of like, oh, what would this person be with this summer? I did it. I found a rock and roller and I brought him in with the yogis and it was amazing. And when you're in the moment, you're like, this is so cool. I didn't know if it was going to work, but when it does, and when you see people enjoying themselves, it's like really fulfilling. Yeah. You were
I was gonna say the difference between like why it doesn't feel like that in the US and it might feel like that in India, and it also feels like that in Mexico, just people being so kind and giving, and especially when they don't have much. And I think it's because especially in the East, the focus is on we, and in the US, or you know, in the West, did I get that? In the East, the focus is on we.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
the West, the
Yeah.
focus is on I.
Mm-hmm.
And so the I separates us from everyone and makes us feel like we're the lone wolves. Everyone is the superhero of their own life. But that mentality of the East, that, you know, like team together, everyone achieves more. Like when we come together and work with each other, we can experience these magical moments.
Yeah. I'm living that life that you described before. 20 years ago, it was not necessarily I, but more me. You know, like I thought you were going to say the we and the me, because me is definitely possessive of that kind of space. I told you, Crystal, when we started working together, that I'm not interested in anything right now unless it involves collaboration. Like to me, community and collaboration is more satisfying. I've achieved enough for 3 lifetimes already in this lifetime, and I feel really drawn towards younger people like yourself that have this awareness that there's more than just the material. And the inner teacher, it was such a nice surprise for you in Israel to mention that before I told you what I was doing, that we read your book and we feel like you should do a podcast on the inner teacher. And I was already halfway through developing, ideas around the Inner Teacher Academy. And it was just like universe collaborating, kind of bringing us together in the magical way that it did. And here we are having conversations with someone like Ashley. Ashley, this has been so enjoyable for me. Like, we had this conversation, last week, like, what are we going to talk about? And I said, I'm sure we're going to find something to talk about.
I can talk for days. So yeah, you just let me know. This Christmas, like we were both in Sun Valley, and we have family and juggling, and there's activities and la la la, and then finally, it was on Christmas Day, and Peter's like, I got like a 2-hour window, and I said, I have a 2-hour window too. We're like, okay, let's go to the hot springs. So we went to the hot springs, and we didn't have. I mean, we could have sat in it probably all day, but it was just so fun to like have a little mini adventure, spur of the moment, in the flow. And just to catch up and because a lot of like digital world and phone and everything, but in real life it's so much better.
Well, we couldn't have planned that. I don't think I just reached out to you because I bet you Ashley's in Sun Valley this Christmas. So I'm just going to text her. And you were there. And so it's like we could have planned it 3 months earlier. Hey, let's meet on this day. But shit, that probably wouldn't have happened. So
exactly.
That was
exactly.
perfect.
Yeah. So go in the flow always.
Okay, I have one last question. If your inner teacher was a rock song, what song would it be?
Gosh. Oh, okay. Now you're putting me on the spot. Oh man, now it's like I've forgotten every song I've ever heard. My inner teacher was a song. I can't think of anything right now. I really can't.
Her.
I can tell you bands I'm listening to right now. I don't know. I can't really, I'm like blanking because I'm on the spot, but I love outlaw country, and I'm really into I just love like the music. I love music that makes me like feel something. And I love music because when you're in the moment of the time, it's like that time will never happen again. You're just in this with the people around you and the time, and in this moment. And I think live music is so amazing because it touches something inside your heart that, and just letting it flow through, again, going back in the flow, just letting the vibration go into your heart and being open and just having fun. It's like this moment of, this is just so cool when the band hits their stride and when you hit the stride and the audience, and it all syncs together. I just think that's a really special time. So I'll tell you the bands I'm listening to right now. I'll think of a song as soon as this podcast is over, but the Red Clay Strays, they're my new faves, and they just got announced coming to Bend, so I can't wait. And then I love Sturgill Simpson. I love Tyler Childers. Whiskey Myers is one of my new faves. He's young, got so much energy. Yeah, so those are just a few that I'm thinking of right now, but yeah, the Outlaws, man, they're the soldiers.
I'm just in awe of every musician you just named. I've never heard of.
Yeah, no, now you got some.
Yeah.
Now you got some music to listen to.
I did go to a concert 2 nights ago, though, which is the first time for years, to a band called the Waylon Jennies. Do you know this group?
I've seen the name.
Yeah, absolutely spectacular female vocalists. And a lot of a cappella, but also supported by string instrument band. It was one of those, what would you call it? The music was exquisite. The voices were exquisite. The message that the songs was exquisite for me. And yeah, to come out of the pandemic and then to have something live with packed people, no one had masks on, it was just like the old days. Everyone's like enjoying the closeness of community.
Definitely.
The music. So yeah, I get it. I've
also gotten, actually, since the pandemic, into stand-up comedy, and I've been going to see a lot of live comedians, and I've never done that before. And it turns out it's really fun to go see comedy because they're funny. So, and it feels good to laugh. And
Doesn't it?
I mean, I am laughing. Like I saw Theo Von in September, and then I went to go see Sebastian Maniscalco, and like your abs, you feel like you've done a million crunches. Like I can't. I can't like do one more crunch. Like, so if you ever need to go get a good workout, like just sign up for a comedian show and just laugh your face off. And it's really fun.
So that I'm glad you bring this comedy thing up, because when I was researching for my book and especially neuroscience and things like that, I discovered how valuable laughter is mentally, and how, let's say, the biochemistry of laughter is so beneficial to our immune system. And, laughter is the best medicine, such a cliche expression, but there's solid science behind it now. Like if you've got some imbalance physically, psychologically, and I've done this at different times in my life when I've been dealing with either mental illness or physical illness, is just watching my favorite comedians on YouTube, and just, Ricky Gervais comes to mind, of just someone who's so articulate with the way he uses language to make curiosity funny, curiosity about like why we use certain words the way we use them, and out of context or in context, and
Totally.
and how a good comedian can bring out the craziness really of why we use these words the way we use them. Like they don't mean what we think they mean. To me, that's just the best kind of medicine there is to like laugh and really laugh at myself sometimes, because oftentimes with Ricky Gervais, he's making fun of people or ideas that I have, and it's just
100%.
like, oh, okay, I get that, like for sure.
And people have gotten, yoga world's really bad at it. Really not. It's like people are so uptight right now. Like, come on, just like loosen up. Let's have some fun. Everything, when they rip on people, it's like they're ripping on everyone. It doesn't mean that they're this, that, and the other thing. It's just like we're having a good time now. I feel like that's gotten lost a little bit. Life is supposed to be this amazing, fun, joyous occasion. It's not so like in the weeds of like, and especially right now. And your student, Nathan Mills, was the one who told me during the pandemic, I'm like, this is nuts, man. Like what? And he's like, I've been listening to a lot of stand-up comedy. And Nathan I would never have thought that from him, because he's a little more like serious, but he's like, give me a list of people. And I just started knocking out the list. And then I just kind of went on from there. But yeah, it's like, yeah, man, this is fun. Like, relax. This doesn't have to be so hard.
Yeah, it is a gift that is underrated, but comedy and humor and non-seriousness. And you're right about a lot of popular contemporary yoga is, in my opinion, too serious. It didn't need to be that serious. And
I mean, the OGs, like think about the like old, I mean, I don't know. They were slapping people, things that they could never get away with right now. That was just normal. And when I was coming up in yoga, it was like, early 90s. It was so different, like how there wasn't it wasn't so sterile, I guess. And I love yoga teachers when they bring humor in. It really adds to the experience. And I gravitate towards teachers that'll make light of themselves and, just the world around. And I think it just kind of makes the mood, because you could make it so serious. Like, I know it's hard doing all this inner work, but, just remember it's also like fun too. We don't have to be so hard on ourselves all the time.
for sure.
Oh,
I feel really like I just finished a nice meal, and I'm complete. How do you feel, Crystal?
This was great. Thank you so much, Ashley. You're a lot of fun, and you're filled with stories.
I have a lot of stories. Someday a book is in my future as well. I don't know.
I think so too.
Yeah.
With some
Yeah.
kick-ass graphics.
Yeah, some kick-ass graphics. So I love telling stories through my graphics, and I love someday. And writing is like another way of, words. Having a way with words is a gift as well. But yeah, someday, I don't know, man. I got a lot of stories.
Well,
sure
part
do.
2. It's on the
Wait.
way.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Well, it's
Right,
really fun to talk to you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, I can't wait to see more about the inner teacher.
Great. We'll see you.
That's it for this episode. Be well and stay open to the teacher within. If you've enjoyed our time together, follow or subscribe and stay tuned for upcoming chats you don't want to miss.